Okay, so here's the fire, and again, directly over my grill grate. And I know y'all see that hole in my grill grate, so any welders out there want to hook me up, you know, come see me. But anyway, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna show you how I stack my wood on there, and then show you how it's gonna burn. So I've got these two pieces, and you know, I like clean wood. I try to get, if I got any loose bark, I get it off of there. But my fire's still burning, but I don't want to block the coals, so I basically kind of stack it where it's just going to burn it off and give just enough of that flavor, but not block the absolute tip of the fire. So we're going to let that catch up and burn, and once the wood catches on, I'll come in here and I'll close this up, and then we'll get started. So that's where we're at with that. Okay, so I got my butts, I got them out of the pack. When I buy butts, I like to be careful on the fat cap, because I cook them direct heat. Most of the fat's always going to render because I'm putting the fat directly over the fire. But if I see a big chunk of fat, I always try to cut that down, because there's a chance that that fat doesn't render, and the last thing you want your customer to get when they're getting one of your Boston butts is a mouth slam full of unrendered fat. In my opinion, there's nothing better than that nice, crispy, crunchy fat. But unfortunately, if you've got the layers like this right here, I'm not getting rid of all that fat, because again, I think that is the best part. And when you're cooking hot and fast, you know, I know people are like, man, you're crazy. When you're cooking hot and fast, this is going to be just basically pork rinds, pork skin. It's going to be crispy pork fat, but I won't really cut off anything more than that, because but I just check them all. Those are good. There's nothing really thick or fat on that. That's a good one. And I try to get good brand Boston butts, because if you buy you know, really off brand, or try to save too much money, you're always going to wind up running into issues where you have an extreme amount of fat. So anyway, I just shed that contaminated glove so I can get my spices here. But this is my own blend. Y'all seen me rub the butts and stuff before, but this will just kind of show you a little bit while I'm doing it. I put a very heavy, because again, direct heat, this is like searing a steak. I'm putting this thing directly in the fire. And so what that's going to do is that's going to create a nice, crispy, crunchy bark on this pork butt. And the fat and the flavor is just going to be incredible throughout there. Now, a lot of people cook and they say, hey, are we having pulled pork? I'm like, no, I don't cook pulled pork. When you're cooking hot and fast, if you're cooking pulled pork, you got to wrap it and you got to do all kind of things. The best kind of steak is right out of the grill, hot, fast, good medium rare, and you get to taste all the spices and the seasonings. I chop my pork. I cook this with this rub over that oak wood specifically so I can chop it up, because what that does is once this bark mixes with all the juices in that pan, you're going to get a flavorful bite every single time. If you decide to slice it, you've got that nice juicy flavor, natural flavor of the pork. Benefit of cooking direct heat is because it's juicy, just like a steak, and the best part of any meat is the stock. It's cooking with the stock in it. And I'm going to cook this to a medium. And so I'm cooking it to about 155, okay? People say, oh, well, you need to cook your pork up to 165. If you're cooking it to pulled pork, you need to cook it up to over 195 to 215 so it falls apart. That's not what I'm trying to do. You lose all the natural juices unless you wrap it. I'm not trying to wrap it. I just want the fire to cook this, kiss it, put a nice bark on it so I can chop it up, and it's just delicious and ready to go. So that's a sneak peek into what I do with the Big Jim style of barbecue, old style of barbecue, fast and hot. So push pause, and we'll be back with you when I start prepping out these ribs. Okay, so I've got my butts rubbed in there. Just showed y'all that, and I'm back out here to check on my fire. I've got the coals white in here. The fire's called on, the wood's called on, so I'm gonna close her up. I'm gonna walk up top here. You can follow me up there, I guess. It'll take just a second. And I'm gonna shut the grill down. And again, you can see right here on the top, there's my fire. Here's where those pork butts are going, but I got to shut it down. I've got to let the fire, I got to let my temperature come up now. Once the temperature comes up, I'm going to check the smoke. I'm sorry, I got my hood vent on out here, so that's what you're hearing. But once I get my temperature starts coming up, I'm going to check the smoke, make sure all the oil has burned out of the lighter fluid. Yes, I use lighter fluid on my charcoal. People say, oh, you can't do that. Once that smoke turns from blue to white, and I get a good smell test on it, I know she's ready to go, and then I'll load my butts on the grill. So that's all. All right, so my temperature's up. It's been about 15-20 minutes. The wood should be stabilized. You know, I look at the smoke, I see no blue. I always compare it to the outside. There's no blue. And then I always give it the old puff. And it's good and clean, smells like good barbecue smoke. So I'm gonna raise up, and I'm going bottom rack. Put the bone closest. Like I said, I want everything right here real close to the smoke, real close to the fire. So come here and show this right here up close in person. See there, around that hole, I'm gonna slide it in. You see the flames on my grill? You see the butts? That's where they're gonna be for about the next 3.5 hours. So I will, so this is my butts. I just snatched them off. There's some old rib pieces on there, but these are my butts after 3.5 hours. And I'll scroll right there, and just like I showed you, see there, we got about a 155 to 158. That's the temperature we were looking for at exactly 3.5 hours. My grill's true and true.